Hello everyone, this is Luke from Lifestyle Custom Homes. This is the third video in our series of videos about improving a piece of land. This is probably the most useful video in the series, and it's probably the most relevant to everyone. So if you're looking at building anything in the greater Toronto area, then you have to do your research and you have to understand the game. The same rules apply whether you're building a custom home, townhouses, or a condo. The bigger the project, there might be a few extra steps, but it is the same process. And based on today's backlog at the city, you could be waiting for 2 years before you actually get your approvals in hand and are able to start your project. So today what we're going to talk about is how to navigate the official plan and how to get your plan approved. So the official plan is broken up into various sections, and the official plan basically tells you it has the city's vision of what it wants to be at a future point in time and where it envisions the growth. The official plan has land use maps, zoning bylaws. Zoning bylaws are very important. The zoning bylaws contain the rules which everyone needs to comply with for whatever they want to do on a specific lot. So the zoning bylaws dictate lot sizes, dictate building heights, dictate how dense, the density, the gross floor area you can build on that specific lot. It dictates where you can put the building, such as the side yard setback, front yard setback. It basically tells you exactly what you're limited to. The official plan also has plans for improvements to transportation, improvements to servicing, where the servicing is going, secondary plans for different areas. In the official plan, you will find zoning maps which designate different areas. You will find the zoning bylaws, which basically contains the rules which needs to be abided by whenever you're building anything in the city. This includes lot sizes, it includes the heights of buildings, it includes parking requirements, it includes density, gross floor area, how big, how dense you can build on that specific site. It tells you where you can build from the front, from the back, from the sides. And it also tells you what the city's plans are for that specific area and where growth is to happen. So basically the zoning bylaws are day-to-day administrators of the official plan. So all this information is great, but how do we use this? Well, that's a great question, and we're going to go through a simple example. So go to the zoning website for your specific city. Pull up a property address. As you can see, we put in Teddington Park Road, which is a swanky area of Toronto where we have worked on a custom home in the past for one of our investors. Based on the zoning, it tells us that this is RD zoning, which means residential detached zoning, F15, which means frontage of 15 meters, so all lots in this area need to be at least 50 feet. D 0.35, which means you can build to a density of 35% of the lot area. And then if we look further into the bylaws, we can see that we need a 20-foot front yard setback, 5 feet side yard setbacks, and you're not allowed anything such as a triplex or a multiplex in the area. And finally, you can't build anything more than 10 meters in height. Based on the zoning, if we have a 100 by 100 foot lot, we can, as of right, build a 3,500 square foot house with a 35% density. So what if you want to build a 4,000 square foot house on this lot? The answer is simple. You would request a minor variance to the zoning bylaw. The process can be very daunting and long and stressful for some people. It's a public process and it is done through the Committee of Adjustments. So if we keep on going with this example, now that we know what we want to build and we know what our limitations are in terms of the location of the house that we're going to build, what else do we need to consider? So using the same example, now that we know what we want to build, what else do we need to think about? What other limitations can there be on the site? So here are a few items that you definitely need to consider. Is the subject property in TRCA, which is the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority area? So this is for properties in close to ravines or in floodplains, close to the Humber River, those kind of properties. We did run into an issue with this in the past. The property was located in a floodplain and it took us an extra 6 months to get our approvals, and the house had to be waterproof, the basement, completely waterproof. It was a little more expensive to do, but in the end, we realized why no one was doing this in the area, because it was so long. It took almost 1.5 years to get approvals on a house, just a normal house. So another thing that you need to consider is to check whether the property is a heritage property. The cities have different areas. Some of them are heritage areas, and some properties are specifically designated as having heritage value for the city. So there's a different process that you have to go through in order to do anything to that property. Another thing that needs to be considered is you look at the area, and is what you are proposing totally different compared to what's there already. It's important to at least comply somewhat with what's in the area. Check the area, check the lot sizes, see what type of structures are actually built on the land. Another thing that you want to consider is whether the area is an archaeological area, which may contain ruins, which you may or may not need to move off the site. Other things to consider is urban forestry. If your specific lot has any of these heritage special designated trees, worst case, you cannot get rid of one of these trees and you have to build your house around the tree. Another thing to consider is if there are any special neighborhood associations. So different areas of the city, the one in Teddington has its own neighborhood association, and people will get together, and if someone wants to propose any development, this association can go to the committee and voice their concerns. So these are just some of the items that need to be considered before you even start on your project. So every city will most likely have its own zoning. Building something in a residential area will have different rules when building on a busy street, which can allow 6+ stories. So these are just some of the items that need to be considered before you get started on your project. In the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, the zoning bylaws can be very restrictive, and in my opinion, they're outdated. Every area in the city has its own zoning rules. If we compare it to a place like Tokyo, Japan, the zoning bylaws are much less restrictive. They basically say you can build what you want, where you want. You actually end up getting some really unique houses, unique housing options, and unique lots, very unique lots. And pricing there in Tokyo, in the center, it's very expensive, but as you get to the suburbs, it's actually very affordable. Check out a link to this YouTube video about Japan. I'm going there in a month, so I'll be back and actually do another video of what I saw when I was there. So going back to our example, the property we want to build does not comply with the zoning bylaws. So what do? Do you give up? Hell no. When you believe what you're proposing will fit into the neighborhood and is in the best interest of the neighborhood, I would say submit it to the city. The city will look over it. They will come back with a list of items that need to be changed or are in non-compliance with the zoning bylaws. Don't be frightened by all these variances that you are asking for. If they're serious, you can revise the design, but once you have the list of variances back from the city and you have the zoning review in hand, you're going to apply to the city for a minor variance. This application gets heard at the Committee of Adjustments. And right now in some areas, it's going to take you almost 7 months to get a meeting with the Committee of Adjustments. About 1 month prior to your meeting date, the committee sends out a little letter to all the neighbors within 120 meters of your property. I'm sure you've received these type of letters before. They basically says that John Smith wants to build, a house, and these are the variances that he's looking for. The notices tell you the property address, and it actually gives you a detailed list of all the variances that the owner is looking for. So everyone within this 120 meters, they're allowed to go and voice their opinion. So they can go and say that they like the development, which never happens, or they can go and voice their opinion saying they don't like the development and why it shouldn't happen. Everyone has 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to make a presentation. If your presentation's longer, they will usually just stop you right there. Now, let me say that there will almost always be someone that comes that doesn't like what you are doing. People don't like change. In the developer community, we actually call them NIMBYs, which is basically people that want change, but they don't want change not in my backyard, they don't want change in their area. You can try to make everyone happy, but I'm sure, throughout life, that you can't. So as long as your proposal meets the official plan and generally fits into the area, I would say go and pursue it. When you're at the Committee of Adjustments, precedence is an important consideration for the committee. They're going to see what else similar to what you're proposing was done in the area and what was approved. Saying that you don't want to be the first person to take a shot at proposing something radically different for the area. We will talk more about if you get rejected at the Committee of Adjustments in another video. So good luck with your application. In the next video, we're going to be talking more about if you get rejected at the Committee of Adjustments, what happens. So that's it for now. Just remember, the perfect lifestyle is up to you.